Welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter Podcast, your number one source of all things bodybuilding. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes. Now, here's your host, Leroy Rollins.
All right, people, welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter Podcast. I'm here with my man, Charles. Charles, introduce yourself to the people, tell them what you're all about, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, my name is Charles Szili, and former pro wrestler, current pro bodybuilder.
Sums it up right there.
All right.
So, okay, let's start with that first little tidbit of information you had there. Pro wrestler, that's pretty cool because I also dabbled in the wrestling thing.
Okay.
I spent some time in the ring myself, so this is going to be super cool. So talk to me a little bit about how that all began, man. How old were you? Where'd you train? All that good stuff. Who did you idolize? Give me it all.
Wow. So, where I started training, I trained with the United States Wrestling Federation. It was owned by a promoter who lived in Elmira, New York, named Bob Bailey. But he had a school up in Medina, so I would go up there every weekend, and then I would train during the week with one of his former students who'd been around for a long time. I'd go to Elmira and I'd train, and we would just train on wrestling mats.
Yep.
So that's where I learned really good technical skills and things like that.
Sure.
So I did that for about 6 months, and then I was able to get licensed as a pro wrestler. In New York State, at that time, you had to have a license.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's before they got rid of the whole licensing thing, eh?
I was like the last one. They got rid of it like the following year. You didn't need it anymore.
That's crazy.
But yeah. So I was like 24 years old.
Okay.
But initially, I wanted to start when I was like 19, which I kind of wish I did a little bit sometimes, just because I think the wrestling was a lot. It was different back in just those 5 years. It changed so much. But I came
when
in
are
on
we
the
talking?
tail end.
Like, give me what year would this have been?
Been about like 2000, 2001
Okay.
when I actually broke in.
Okay.
But I would have loved to have been around like a few years earlier. Maybe had some shots with WCW because that was actually one of my favorite organizations to watch. So, pardon the.
That's all right.
The loud.
My dog's sitting here like, what was that?
The vicious ankle biters. But, yeah, so I would have loved to have been around in WCW times because they just closed up, I think, pretty much like right around the time I actually started getting into matches and stuff. So, but, I mean, it was downhill after that. I mean, 15 years of wrestling, got to travel the world, got to do a lot of things, meet a lot of guys.
Yep.
Worked with so many different guys from all the organizations. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Give me some name drops. Who did you work with? That the general population might know.
Jake the Snake Roberts.
Nice.
Let's see, Road Warrior Animal. Let's see, got Billy Gunn.
Right on.
Got X-Pac. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was one of the legends. King Kong Bundy, Nikolai Volkov.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's
so it was a wide array of like legends and guys that were relatively new off the roster and guys that just been around that I got to work with. So I was pretty fortunate.
So where all did you go? Like, where did you wrestle the most?
When I started out, it was pretty much New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ventured out into Pennsylvania with my partner, Rob Cook. He's out of Elmira. He's a good friend of mine for a lot of years.
Right.
And, so we dabbled down into PA a little bit. And then after that, I realized, because I didn't have any expectations when I got into it. So, I just wanted to be a part of it. And then all of a sudden, things just kind of started rolling. And then I was getting bookings here and there. And then I just started getting more, I went from working maybe twice a month to 4 times a month, which was like every weekend. And then it just snowballed from there to where I was working, some weekends I was doing like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of gig. So it just snowballed from there. And then I was just traveling all over. I mean, from most of the United States, from like Michigan back to the East Coast, and from, Vermont, Maine, down to, the Carolinas.
Yeah, for sure. That's like, I'm in Ontario, just kind of near Toronto, and there's probably like 15 promotions that run within like you could drive there if you wanted to, and like I still like follow a few guys that I used to wrestle with and stay in touch with some of them, and same thing, right? Like a Friday, maybe sometimes two on a Saturday, depending on how close they are, and then again on Sunday. Like, it's crazy, and especially now, like, wrestling seems to be kind of on the uprise again, where it was in a bit of a pits there for a few years in kind of the early 2000s, but now it seems to be like these guys have no issues with getting works, and they're getting like good turnouts, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, the business is definitely evolving. I did quite a few shows up in Canada. I know Toronto, I spent a little time up there. I did some shows.
Yep.
It's a long time. I can't remember what organizations, but but it was fun. Like, there, where I really enjoyed was like going overseas, like Germany, Denmark.
Oh, yeah.
Puerto Rico. I mean, Germany especially. Awesome time over there. Those fans are just, man, they love their wrestling over there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a little bit of a different style than here. They kind of, you have the new school, but they like that old school style of, how to work a match here, where it's different in the States, where, guys are trying to get every move in that they know in, 5 minutes. But
doing 450s in the first 2 minutes.
yeah, it's a little different over there. But it's a great experience, though.
So what was kind of your whole gimmick thing? Like, what was your shtick?
Yeah, that's like the toughest question, because I don't think I had a shtick. I think, here's what it was. I was 265 pounds.
Yep.
I was a big dude. I threw people around. I was just I think more, it's boring, but I was that blue collar, just going to get in the ring. I'm just going to beat someone up, and, and that's about what it was. There wasn't anything, fake about it. Pretty much it was the persona I, carried in or out of the ring, I guess. I was just hard worker.
Yep.
Big dude. I'm going to go in there and, give everything I got, and I'm going to work hard and, put on a good show for everyone.
Right on. So were you like full-time wrestling, or did you like have another job as well, or did wrestling kind of pay the bills?
No, unfortunately, it didn't pay the bills, but I mean, it kept it busy. Obviously training in the gym 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And then I was on the road at least, a couple times, every week. But then I had a full-time job, government job. So, kind of hard to walk away from that kind of, when you got, pension and everything like that you're working towards. So, wrestling, would have had to, I mean, I came close in 2011, that I had a shot with TNA. Just didn't fall through, fell through at that time. It wasn't really the right time, I guess.
Sure.
And then after that, it was just like, I'm just going to ride it out, do some good shows, work some good talent. And I think at that point, 2011, I started realizing, I'm not really looking to go full-time at it.
Yep, for sure. No, 100%. All right, so let's talk about the transition to bodybuilding now, which is what my whole shtick is these days. Obviously, what you've done very well in. So what was the transition? What all of a sudden did you kind of wake up and you're like, you know what? I'm a big dude. I might as well go on stage.
Wow. You know what? First, I gotta just start by saying bodybuilding was a sport I never, I followed it all my life. Obviously, since I was a kid reading the magazines. Never thought I'd step on stage.
Really?
I'm like, I would never do that.
Yeah.
Never. I'm not getting up there in those small little, trunks, and no way. And then 2015, I think I got burned out with wrestling. I'd done it for 15 years, been around the world. And I think at that point, I just got burned out with it.
Yep.
And at the time, that's when I met my wife, Jamie. And she, for the longest time, was trying to get on stage. It was always her goal, and she never could achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got me into it,
Right.
So we started working with a coach who was referred to me by a guy that I used to wrestle with. He was out of Buffalo. And I started working with him in like May of 2015. I actually retired. My last match was September 15. And it took about a good year. And he got me from like 265-ish down to about 197 for my first show.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But it was a huge transition because at that time I'm like, I was used to just eating anything I wanted.
Yeah.
Just training, lifting heavy. So it was a shock. I mean, it was something totally different.
That's a lot of weight to lose.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of scared me the most. I'm like, man, I was used to being big so long, strong. I'm like, what is this going to do as far as, performance in the gym? What am I going to look like if I lose all this weight?
Yep.
But, I got on stage that first time, and again, no expectations. It was I got on stage, I achieved a goal, and then it just took off from there. The bug bit me, and I'm like, all right, now I know what that next thing in my life is that I want to do. Because I knew with wrestling gone, I still love to train.
Yeah,
I'm competitive. But what can I apply all that gym time to and that competitive nature to?
Sure.
And it just made sense.
Right on. So, okay, so let's go through the show history then. So 2015, first show, how'd you do?
I started dieting down and training in 2015 for shows. My first show was April 2016.
Okay.
It was a DFAC show in Buffalo. Took second in the open bodybuilding.
Okay.
And then I followed that up with June of that year. I did an OCB show in Albany. I took third, fourth, and fifth. And I did. I think it was second, third, and fifth, and that was in debut, novice, and then open. I finished fifth in the open.
Nice.
Bodybuilding. And then I finished out the year in November, actually just missing getting my Masters Pro card in April of 16. I finished second.
Oh, man, so close.
And then I came back in April of 17, got my Masters Pro card with OCB. And then my plan was to take the rest of the year off. And then I'm like, I got the bug. I'm like, no, I want to get back on stage. So I actually did an ANBF Pro Masters in September of 17. And I took fourth out of 8, but it was a tough class.
Yeah.
Very seasoned guys in there with me. So I'm like, all right, finishing fourth wasn't bad. And then I took one more. I did the USBF Pro Masters Nationals that November, and I took first. So that was my first pro win.
Nice.
And then, after that, I started working with a new coach, Brian Devins, out of Utica with Upstate Empire Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And his thing with me is he wanted to take a whole year off with me. He wanted a good off season. And at that point, I never had a really good off season.
Yep.
And my concern was, okay, I'm going to have this off season, flexible dieting. Oh, man, I'm going to have 12 months. I might go off the reservation here. And, I don't want to be 260 again.
Sure.
But it went really smooth. The transition was smooth. My strength really shot up. It was phenomenal. We got back to the basics.
Nice.
Saw constant changes. And my weight, the highest I got was about 234, which was a few pounds heavier than I wanted, but it didn't spill over.
That's still a reasonable spot to be at your size anyways, right?
Yeah, and that's, I think, why he didn't really say anything, because I wasn't, like I said, spilling all over the place.
Yep.
And it was a great off season. And then I came back this past April, and I said, I'm going to challenge myself. And it was like 4 shows right back to back to back.
Jeez.
But, man, when I saw my pictures, like when I compared November of 17 to April of this year, just the first show, I'm like, oh, my God. I came in probably about 5 pounds lighter than 17. But, man, the look, I added so much more muscle mass. I was fuller.
Which show was the one we did in your little blitz there?
That was the second one. That was that was April 20th. That was the second show of my season.
Okay.
And in fact, that week I came in a couple pounds tighter than the week before.
Oh man, you were ridiculous.
I was like, this is crazy. Like, I'm at 182. I hadn't seen 182 since like first year out of high school.
That's crazy.
So,
like, for your size, like, people that don't know bodybuilding, like, the weight can mess with you, right? Like, when someone says 182, like, right now, like, I'm like 186, right? And to say like you were 182, they're like, okay, like, how big could he have been? And it's like, yeah, but that's 182, like, peeled, like,
yeah,
nothing left. And like, I remember, like, you know, not to blow your head up a little bit, but like, you know, being young in the game still, it's to see like athletes like yourself that have been lifting for years and years and years longer than I have, and just what that does. Like, it's just, muscle maturity is a thing. I'm sure there's no direct like scientific evidence of it, but like, you can't deny like hard years of training and what that does to a body. But like, you can see it, right? And like, you know, what I was saying at the beginning, like, seeing you backstage is like, okay, like, that's what I'm working towards, is like another, you know, 10 years of good training, and like, that's what, you know, you can look forward to, especially naturally, right?
Oh, definitely. And I think for me, I was lucky maybe starting later in my life because, you know, I have close to like now 30 years of training under my belt. And you know, I'm used to that high volume, 6-7 days a week training, and basics, the squats, deadlifting, and all that stuff. So I built my body prior to that with just such heavy lifting that, you know, once it came down now, the bodybuilding competing part, you know, the hard part about that was just the diet now. Now it was just tweaking the diet because everything was under there. Now it's just uncovering it all. But
exactly. So let's talk about that a little bit. What is your kind of approach when it comes to dieting? Like, a lot of people have like little nuances that they do differently. What's your method? Like, are you like a clean, this is my meal plan, or are you more flexible? Are you flexible within reason? Like, how do you approach, you know, prep for a show?
So prep for a show, I think because we went with a longer prep, I think it messed with my head a little bit because I was used to those short 12-week preps, which, by the way, I think the 20-plus week preps are phenomenal for bringing out the most muscle and getting as peeled as possible without, you know, coming in flat and looking too you know, shriveled up and stuff like that. So
how long are we talking? Like, what's your kind of sweet spot?
I think this time around, I think we were around that 22 to 24 week spot.
Yep, I would agree.
And comparing that to the 12 weeks, I'm like, whoa, a total difference.
Yep.
I think for me this time around, for the first, I would say until we got to about 10 weeks, I think I was a little more flexible to a point.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think some people's misconceptions is, oh, he's on a macro plan, so, you know, he's shoving cupcakes in his mouth.
Yeah, he's having Fruit Loops for breakfast every day. And
yeah, and I mean, that wasn't the case at all. I mean, my nutrition was based on egg whites, ground turkey, sometimes chicken, you know, I liked asparagus, salad, you know, sugar-free jelly, English muffins, stuff like that. So, like, you know, I kind of kept a bro approach, but with a flexible approach, because I kept everything the same because I knew what foods worked best for me, what was helping me achieve my goals. I knew what didn't work or agree with me, so I didn't use those. But it wasn't, I mean, probably the last, I would say 7 to 8 weeks is where I really buttoned it up, where, like, you know, I would like fat-free whipped cream a little bit. So instead of worrying about tracking that, I didn't even, once I got to 7 weeks, I said, all right, we got to cut that out. And then it just became, everything was pretty rigid from there. Like, you know, I wasn't too flexible. I knew it worked, and I stuck with it the entire time.
Yep. I find, too, just like bodybuilders by nature are pretty habitual. And, you know, for me personally, like, I have, even in my off season, like, probably 3 meals a day are always the same. It's just, I like the food. It's easy, it's convenient, and it's just what I do, right? And people think that's crazy, but then you say, okay, yeah, but you have the same coffee and muffin on your way to work every day. Like, what's the difference, right? But just because I'm having chicken and rice, people think I'm crazy. But even in that flexible approach, like you said, like people have that misconception, like you're probably still eating, these 10 foods in rotation, but you have that flexibility with you're like, okay, if I want a little more of this, I'll have it. That just means I have to take it out somewhere else.
Right. And here's the funny thing too is when I did the bro approach, like strictly that bro dieting and all that stuff. I remember after my last pro show, and just before I started working with my new coach, I remember I think I went from 187 to probably about 215, 216 within a week before I even started working with him. So, like, I was wondering, like, whoa, like when he gave me my new program, I was like strong right off the go. Well, I had about 20, 30 pounds extra on me.
Yeah.
This time around, I'm almost 2 months post show, and I'm sitting around 208.
Yep.
And I'm sitting like probably a good 10 pounds lighter. But, when I had my first phase of my program, I was wondering, man, my body was as sore as all can be. But I realized my strength was going up, but my body weight was still hovering in those like 204, 205 range.
Right.
So now it had a lot less weight on it while I was pushing this enormous weight I was pushing at 230.
Sure.
So this time around, it's come on a little slower. And have I deprived myself? No. I mean, there are some times when I kind of go more intuitive with my eating, especially on the weekend.
Yep.
So, but I still gauge in my head, and it's not like I'm going off the charts with anything.
No,
I just give myself a little freedom.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the off season, right? Like that's what the off season's for. It's to kind of give your brain a little bit of a break. But like you said, like, again, as bodybuilders, like at any given time, you're probably like, okay, I've had enough protein today. I could probably have some more carbs or whatever. Or like, I can't not have a meal with protein. And that protein might be a shake, it might be a bar, it might be chicken, it might be egg whites. I've done it for so long, it's weird to me to not do that. Like, I could never sit down and have, like, a bowl of fruit and some cookies. Like, it's weird to me, you know what I mean? You're in those habits for so long, even in the off season. It's, you're going out for dinner, you're not just, like, you're still going to look at the menu and be like, okay, like, what do I want and what's reasonable and what have I had today and you know what I mean? Like, you just stay in those habits. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I mean, even to this, even now, 2 months post show, my breakfast still the same.
Yep.
Still the same as it was. And then throughout the day, it's, a couple of my meals are pretty much the same. And then I get a little flexible at night because now I train at night. So now I sometimes save a little more of my carbs for, after work. That way, closer to, a heavy leg day or a squat or a deadlifting or rack pull day. I want a little more energy towards that.
For sure.
But yeah, a lot of the foods, but I enjoy them, like, sugar-free jelly, fat-free whipped cream, stuff like that. I enjoy it. I'm like, it doesn't bother me. People look at me like, you're weird. Why do you eat fat-free and sugar-free? And I'm like, it's good.
Oh yeah. Like we've got this like sugar-free or low sugar, like ketchup, and we prefer it now over like regular ketchup. And you're right. People are like, why would you have that? Like, you don't have to have that now. I'm like, it's better. Come on. It tastes better.
I've had the low sugar ketchup, and people tell me it's gross. And I'm like, have you tried it? And they go, no. I'm like, well, you can't say it's gross.
Exactly.
I honestly love it better than the regular ketchup.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so diet we got. So what's kind of like your training approach during prep? Like, do you stay with the same thing? Like for me, for example, I really don't change my training much during a prep. The latter weeks of prep, like I'll dial it back, like as far as weight go, just because, I get down to like 150 pounds. So to get under the bar and squat some good weight at 150 pounds, you feel like you're going to snap in half.
Yeah.
Are you similar in that you kind of just ride your same wave? If it's working, don't change anything?
Yeah, the one constant my coach kept the whole time was we kept everything the same, including up until even peak week.
Yep.
We didn't change anything crazy. I was still, I was drinking 2 gallons of water a day. My meals, the only thing that changed was my numbers from day to day based on how I looked.
Sure.
But overall, when I look back on it, they didn't change that much. So things were constant. They were going in the direction we wanted. So there was like no need to make any drastic changes. I think squats they probably came out of my routine, I would say, maybe 6 weeks prior to the first show, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
We got those out, and then it was just mostly leg press and, the standard extensions, curl stuff. But other than that, outside of, like, there was no deadlifting or stuff like that. But other than that, everything pretty much stayed kind of constant.
Yeah, and that seems to be, like, the common trend, right? Like, and especially, like, in more high-profile athletes that I've talked to, is, like, they don't change anything. They just kind of regulate it as they go. Like, if you do, if you're doing squats one day and all of a sudden you're like, man, they're not feeling good, and you're getting close to your show, okay, I don't want to hurt myself. And if I take squats out, it's not like my legs are going to shrink, right? And a lot of, like, younger athletes that I speak with, they're afraid to do that, right? Because that's what they assume, right? Or they take bench out because they don't have, the mass in their upper body to, like, support the bar anymore. I'm like, well, why don't you go to, like, a hammer press or a machine press? Well, I don't want to shrink. It's like, well, it's not how it works, my friend.
Yeah, and I was always told by, like, old school bodybuilders, are like, look, when you're leading up to a show, don't go in there and start just dropping weight and, like, going in there and curling the 20s and stuff like that. And because that's what people think, I got to do low weight, high reps. And I'm like, throughout my prep, I mean, we had a variation of reps. You had your 8 to 12s, 10 to 15s, 20 to 30s, and it worked. Now, and even my strength, and because of the fact that we went with a longer prep, my strength stayed intact a lot longer than I expected. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, that's why I thought I was doing something wrong, but I wasn't. But I was able to kind of lift at some good amount of weight and just keep those muscles full leading up to the show. And then obviously the last couple weeks, you start getting a little tired, but I mean, the workouts, I still had that energy. I was able to get through them and still move some decent weight. So, but we just, took out the main movements, your like deadlift, squat, stuff like that, more for injury prevention.
Exactly. And that's something that, had you not say anything, that's what I want to touch on real quick is like as you get leaner, the risk to reward starts to skew a little bit, right? Like when you're, for you, when you're 220, for me, when I'm 180, you just have more to push with, right? But as you get leaner, your joints kind of get a little achy from time to time. You don't have that mass to push with. Like that's when you gotta, take a step back and say, okay, instead of some heavy stiff leg deadlifts, I'm just gonna do some more leg curl variations, right? Just because I don't want to get hurt this close to the show.
Yeah, and I even switched from like, I would do like, stiff leggeds or RDLs. They were in there, and I switched over to dumbbells because I felt I didn't have to worry about, the bar, loading the bar up, and, I felt like that applied more pressure, like maybe I could tweak something. I went to the dumbbells and had that better range of motion and was able to get some good squeezes from that. And I saw that as more of a benefit leading up to the shows.
Even with recovery too, right? Like I found certain movements, for whatever reason, I would take longer to recover from, right? If I'm doing legs on a Saturday and I'm scheduled to do legs again on Tuesday, for example, and I would do squats, I'd still be sore. Whereas if I'd switched it up to maybe another 2 sets on the leg extension and an extra set of lunges, I could recover from it just fine, right? But that's stuff that, like, as an athlete, you got to pay attention to.
Yeah, it was definitely because, it seemed like every day is leg day, but like it comes so fast. It's like, didn't I just do these already? I mean, but yeah, that's what it is. It's just understanding your body, what works, how you're feeling things, and sometimes you just gotta, make those adjustments. And I don't think my legs were suffering from 4 weeks of not squatting, and
exactly,
but now getting back into them, the strength is going up, but at the lighter body weight, I'm still feeling it, but I'm still getting a little more cushion to start heaving it up, the weights up.
It's getting it's almost like your body forgets a little bit. I found the first time I'd done like a barbell back squat, like it had been a long time just from the gym I had trained at, and then with prep and stuff, like I hadn't been under the bar in a long time, like months. And I remember I put like 135 on my back, and I was like, I've never squatted before. This is so weird.
And it's funny you said that because I'd never had this happen before. And the first time I squatted after, I'm like, all right, I'm going to ease into this. One plate, no problem. Did a whole bunch of reps. Then I did 185, got a bunch of reps. It felt nice. It was smooth.
Yep.
We're working our way up slowly. And all of a sudden, I took a little break. I sat down and I went to get up, and I'm like, oh my legs, like the inner thighs, they hurt so bad. I thought I was going to fall over. I literally that day couldn't squat more than 225 because I didn't want to tweak my back or a knee, because coming down it hurt so bad because I hadn't squatted in just, I mean, it was only like maybe 5-6 weeks, but it was like
your body
never
forgets,
squatted
man.
before.
It's crazy.
God, it hurt so bad.
For sure. Quickly dabble on cardio when it comes to prep. Like, what's your approach with cardio? Are you like fasted? You do HIIT at all? Stairmaster, treadmill, walk around the park? Like, what's your tactics with cardio?
We went with I like the treadmill. I'm good with the treadmill. I usually get like a 13.5, 14 incline, maybe like a 3.8 speed on there, 3.9. The thing was the cardio was minimal, because my weight was coming down with my nutrition the way it was. And then honestly, my training, like I trained hard enough that, there wasn't a need to be doing, 45 minutes or an hour of cardio. That would have just been overkill, which is what I was doing before that, before I had this, I started working with my new coach.
Yep.
So cardio was maybe, a few times a week, we're looking at maybe, half-hour sessions.
Perfect.
And then the closer I got to my shows, then, like the week of, there was like, maybe day one was 45 minutes, day two was like, 35 down to 25.
Yep.
Then by the time I got to the day before the show, it was maybe just 20 minutes of literally like a walk.
Yep.
And that was it.
That's perfect, man. Okay, so quickly before we wrap this up, just looking at the time here, kind of give me like 2 or 3 little tidbits that you can share for like someone that's getting into bodybuilding with the mindset of eventually wanting to compete. Like you got into it late, but you've been training for a very long time. I'll have all your Instagram stuff below so people can go check you out. Like you've built a very dense, respectable physique. So what can you share with people that are, up and coming athletes? They want to compete, they want to do well, they want to build this naturally. What can you share with them?
So throwing in the part about competing naturally, I'm going to go with, I think, an important part first is you should look into hiring a coach. I think a coach, especially if you're new, I think a coach, it's a second set of eyes on you. But I caution, because I see too many people, there's too many people out there that claim they're coaches, but they really don't know what they think they know.
Yep.
And they're doing a lot of damage to some athletes, and I've seen it personally where they've done some damage to the health of the athletes. Do your research.
Right.
There's a lot. I mean, people can reach out if you're putting my social media stuff up. People can direct message me.
Yep.
And I'd be glad to help them and point them in the right direction because I've met a lot of respectable coaches, my current one including. They're certified. They've been around. They got a track record that speaks for itself. It's so important. If you're going to hire a coach, know what you're getting with that, because not only are they putting your competitive career in their hands, but your health.
Yep.
So I think that's first and foremost. So do the research on that. Second, it takes time. I've been training.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah, I think that's the other important thing. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. So I've only been competing, 4 years, and I've achieved quite a bit in that time. That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen for everybody. I had a lot of, the basics down decades in advance. So it takes time.
Right? Like, even though you've been only competing for 4 years, you didn't just wake up at 265. Like, that's time in the gym. That's time paying attention to your food, right? And, like, had you have done as well 10 years prior, we will never know. But you can't deny that, decades of good things that you've done that add up to this, 4-year competitive span that you've done very well in, right?
Yeah, like you said, decades of, training, hard training, heavy training, not going to the gym and just, going through the motions. I mean, just
Sitting on
moving
this
a
thing
ton of
every
weight.
time.
Exactly. Yeah, I got 5 more sets to go, and while they're texting me,
Yeah.
what? Get off that machine. But it takes time to build a solid physique. And the other thing I would stress too, and it goes back to like the coach thing. Don't look for the quick fix to add, size naturally, to add that quality, get that quality physique. There's substances that know the organizations you want to compete in, know what's on the banned list, because there's a lot of coaches that will push stuff that's on the banned list because they'll try to get around it. Don't sell yourself short, because if you want a long career and you want a healthy lifestyle, and that's basically what this is. It's 365, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. It's not something you turn on and off, just because I'm prepping or not. Off season, it's still a lifestyle. And it just realize it's going to take time. Some people have better genetics and they'll get better faster than others. But don't get discouraged. Take time and consistency, and that's the key.
Yeah, for sure. And the one thing I want to add to you when it comes to like doing your research for your coach is like, especially with social media now, this has been really on my mind recently, is like people look up to athletes that, whether they claim they're natural or not, or, there's a lot of young people that are my age or younger that I know for a fact are not natural but will not admit to it, but they have these incredible physiques and they, send out these training programs that people can buy and all this stupid stuff, and they push supplements that don't work and all this stuff. And it's like, you've got to do your research with like who you're idolizing too, right? Like someone like yourself, like had I not met you at that show, I might never know who you are, but to see what you've built as a natural athlete over the time, and then like through, finding people down the rabbit hole, like everybody that I follow and look up to in the natural bodybuilding world are very much older than me. And I think that goes to show how much time it takes, right? And they have all good knowledge up here, and they're not pushing all this dumb information that people just they think, okay, that's what I got to do, and fall for all these stupid things. Like you said through this entire podcast multiple times, do the basics, eat good food. Just those are the big ones, right? That people kind of want to ignore for some reason. It seems nowadays no one wants to do those two things: eat good and train hard. Okay, that's how it's all done, right? But no, they want to buy that $9.99 ebook, or they want to find that supplement that says, "Oh, I'll gain 20 pounds in 2 weeks." It's like, no, like it's not how it works.
Yeah, it's funny because people ask for help, and it's like, maybe if I give advice, maybe it's boring advice, but I'm like, it's really simple. It's not, and there is no magic supplement out there. And if people think about it, logically, when you say supplement, a supplement is something to supplement what you're doing already. Yes. A lot of people think, if I take this, well, my nutrition can be poor, but as long as I'm training, I'm taking this supplement, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to get. It doesn't work like that. And unfortunately, you got guys out there that are pushing, SARMs and things like that.
Yeah, that's the big one now, eh? SARMs, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and you know what? And I've talked to people that actually did try it, and they're like, it's garbage, I'm not gonna lie, I've known people that had it pushed on them, and told it was all to be out of your system before you compete, and I'm like, no, it's on the ban list for a reason. Don't get caught up into that. And that's why I say do the research on the coaches that you're with, because the coaches I know wouldn't even, if you even mention that word to them, they'd be like, all right, listen, you're not doing a natural show.
No.
Simple as that.
Yep.
And supplement-wise for me, I use a pre-workout. I throw in a little protein powder from time to time.
Creatine.
And
that's probably the only, like protein, like I think everybody's like, oh yeah, protein powder is good stuff, pre-workout. Like creatine's probably the only like full-on thing that I would say, okay, that's got some benefit. It's not banned. It's probably one of the most researched supplements there is. Okay,
Yeah.
if you want one thing to take, if you're training good, you're eating good stuff. Okay, what should I take? All right, take some creatine, man. Like,
There you go.
It's gonna give you that extra 1% if you want it. But yeah, you're right. Like everything else is just like, quit it.
Honestly, and creatine, those are the only few things I use. And here's what's funny: when I was prepping, I didn't use a single fat burner.
Yeah, that's.
I used to for years be like, oh, I got to get this fat burner. I got to get this one because it's going to help me drop fat. No, it's not. No. So my coach this time, I'm like, do I need fat burners? No, don't even worry about that stuff. It's garbage. And I didn't. And I'm like, whoa. And I saw what happened, and I'm like, didn't need it. It came from my training and nutrition.
Yeah. Perfect. That was a great rant to end on. I hope if anybody listens to this podcast, they just repeat that last 2 minutes and just really take that in, because that's summed up. That's very important for people to hear.
Yeah, definitely. So I know the industry is growing. There's a lot of people that want to compete. So it's awesome to see that. But again, going back, just take your time.
Yep.
And and surround yourself with the right people. That'll teach you and show you the right way.
Right on, man. All right, dude. Well, I appreciate you finally getting on the podcast. Me and this guy have been trying to do this. Well, shit. Probably we competed in April, and now it's near the end of June. So we finally got it. So I thank you again, my man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, man.
All right, people. Thanks for watching. Be sure to follow this guy on Instagram. He's got quite the physique he's built. So it'll be linked down below. Give him a follow. And thank you again, man. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. You too, man.
Bye.